Hello. Quick catch up from last week. Well, I made my last video on Wednesday, and then on last Thursday I went to Walmart by myself, so I had time to poke and prod and look into all the nooks and crannies of clearance and dolls and things without bored family around. And I found another Star Darlings doll for about $5. This one has the fantasy pearlescent skin tone, so she won't be easy to body swap. But I do think these dolls are cute, even though they have a super stereotypical Disney face. So I'll probably actually let this one keep her head and body combination, although I don't know if I will change her eyes or her skin or her hair or anything. And I'm keeping her in the box until I feel like I get to a point where I've cleared out a lot of other projects, and then I'll unbox her and figure out what to do, because I already had a ton of projects before I got that doll. And I did go thrifting yesterday. Didn't find a lot in terms of dolls. I found a Hasbro Secret Central, which again, as usual, I'm not sure if I will leave her as is and find someone else who wants her, or if I will start getting super swappy and put her head on a larger body and with new hair and new paint. The head sculpt is nicely smirky, so she does have potential. I also found a sensational Malibu Barbie. It looked like something had burrowed into her legs once upon a time, and she smelled like she had been in storage for a while, which means she just smelled like the dolls of my youth that I recovered after they had been in storage for a while. So I got her, and I put her on an artsy body, and these shoes are made for old style Barbie feet, so they don't really fit this body very well. Anyway, put her on a artsy Nikki fashionista body, and the match is not great, but it's pretty good considering it's really hard to match anything to these old Barbie tan heads, skin tones. I do like that she's just old enough that her makeup gets to being very 1970s retro, even though she is from 82 or 83. Still, the 80s hadn't kicked into the over-the-top neon big hair era at that time. So she actually feels to me like a vintage doll and not just another superstar Barbie. Although granted, I probably wouldn't have looked twice at this doll if not for Chris and his love of superstar Barbies, so score one for you, Chris. And then I started playing around with heads and things that I've had laying around. Like when I thrifted that Ever After High Venus Cupid. Not Venus, Cupid. I'm not an Ever After High or Monster High expert. You probably know that by now. I thrifted that the other day, and I basically thrifted her for her body because the Ever After High bodies are cute, and I'm not too fond of the head sculpts, but I was still playing around and ended up putting Cupid's head on a Lollipop Girl's body that had come to me secondhand missing the neck knob, so I had rigged up the neck knob a while ago with a screw and the connector for some light stick bracelets. I keep those around because they look like they could be useful, and sometimes they are. So here she is, and I like the head on the neck. I know this sounds weird. I think this head will look good on a chubby body, but you know there aren't a lot of chubby bodies, and the Lollipop Girl body definitely isn't chubby. So I will probably leave her like this for a while, probably repaint her, and I've got to stop frowning at dolls. And I will think about whether I want to add things to this body to make it curvier. And for a long time this body had been sitting in my parts bin without the legs on it because I really want to give some sort of articulated legs to it. But I went ahead and snapped her original legs back on just so this head would be on a complete body, at least for now. And I also finally got some stuff together for that shawnee head that I found. And She's on a 1990s Christie gymnast style body, African American Barbie body, because it is hard to find a modern, well-articulated Barbie body that can match this skin tone. She's too dark for the live bodies that are darker too, and well, the reason I hadn't immediately put her on this body, other than the fact that we all know the joy and sadness of finding shoes for this body, but also this body had a huge crack in the top of the neck, so huge that when I found it in the thrift store, the head was missing, the neck knob was missing, and a chunk of plastic was missing. I tried patching that up with some epoxy putty, and I left it for a long time so it would be super cured. And I touched up the color even though I was worried that it would scrape off, because if you've ever painted a body and put a vinyl head on it, you know that vinyl and that paint will stick to each other, and once you move the head, the paint comes off. So I was a little hesitant to paint just that little bit, but I did, and I got it done, and I put the head on, and it looked okay, and I took the head off, and the epoxy just cracked right off. So I decided what I would do is, the body that this head was originally on was not in good shape. One of the hands was completely chewed off, the other hand was kind of chewed. I think the feet were chewed. The neck was starting to develop cracks at the top, but not bad. So I cut the neck off of this articulated body, I cut the neck off of the doll's original body, and I glued them together with, well, not glue, I used a thing called plastic weld, which what it does is it temporarily melts a hard plastic, so when you stick it together, as the plastic weld evaporates and the plastic gets hard again, it will weld the plastic pieces. And there were some gaps in the back where I hadn't sanded things completely flat, so I used John's technique of putting little tiny pieces of hard plastic in a little tiny bit of acetone, screwing the lid on it because acetone is nasty, you don't want to breathe acetone, letting it sit for a while until the plastic melts, and then using a toothpick to fill in the gaps between the neck parts with the melted plastic. And it worked pretty well. I made a huge mess of it, and it took me a while to get it sanded down. I started with Dremel, cycling through from coarser to finer Dremel bits, and then finally finished it up with some really fine sandpaper. And on the front you can see, I know it won't show up in this video, I will post pictures of her in the usual places. You can see the line, partly because the neck and the body aren't quite the same color of plastic, partly because I didn't do the cleanest job of it, but when I run my fingernail over it, I can't feel it for the most part. I think it's a good solid bond. It definitely didn't even start to crack when I was sanding it, or when I put the head on and took it off a few times. So, for now, until Mattel comes out with a really dark, articulated body in a modern style, it could be fashionistas. I know there's the sew-in style dolls, which, like a lot of people I saw in the store, thought, I'll pick one of these up next time I'm here, and they were all gone. And of course, we would love to have a made-to-move body in a 1980s and 1990s Christie skin tone. We'd like to have the made-to-move body in the 1980s and 1990s Barbie skin tone. We're probably not going to get that. So until then, this is what she has. I am happy to have this head on a body. Also, since she originally had a bat haircut, I went ahead and took all of her hair out. And I might still reroot her, but for today I just went ahead and covered her scalp with tacky glue and stuck snipped up wool yarn onto it. So she has this little almost oxidized Christie short hairstyle. And I have not touched her lips up yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to repaint her, but for now I am just happy to finally have a shawnee head sculpt on an active doll, not just sitting in the parts bin waiting for use. And then last week I showed you the green painted body and said I was going to reroot it and finish it and I showed you that little hank of blue hair that I didn't think would be quite enough, but it turned out to be exactly enough. And here she is. Yes, there is a hole in her dress. I've been touching that out in all of her pictures. Shh. And yeah, this is a doll that I got the reroute done with an anchor thread method in 6 or 7 hours. I know I can use a tension method because a lot of people do use a tension method and it works out just fine, but my brain just doesn't trust me with the tension method. Either I'm going to stick not enough in and it's all going to fall out, or I'm going to stick too much in and destroy the head. And this head was already pretty much destroyed because, again, this was a Blue Box BBI Coca-Cola fashion doll and not a terribly high quality doll. There was a big chunk of her scalp missing in the front center where John, who sent me this head, had taken out her original hair, and along the part line it was just packed. The hair was packed so close that the head was just destroyed when the hair was removed. And as I was rooting this head, the variations in the thickness of the vinyl was really funny. Some places the needle would go right through without any effort. Some places I had to really grip an angle and shove the needle through because there was that much of a variation in the thickness of the vinyl. Yeah, there's really not a lot to say about her. I did have a bracelet on her that scraped a lot of paint off of her arm, so I touched that up and then put a craft decal that I'd had on as a sort of tattoo, because I'm not good at painting tattoos, and I know from experience that Halloween themed, because it's me, I know that temporary tattoos don't stick to sealed painted bodies, at least not in my experience, not with the sealants I use. If I would think about putting them on the body before being sealed, they would probably stick, but the whole point of putting them on after they're sealed is to cover up where the paint gets chipped off. And so having it not stick is not good. And there were some places on her legs where the paint had also chipped off. And I'm not talking about around the paint scrapes around the joints. I don't mind those. Those are inevitable with a painted body, but it's just the weird random, like her calves click together and next thing I know there's paint missing. That bugs me, but I did touch those up. And when I painted her face, again, I am a little bit of a stickler. I don't like pink blushing or pink tones on dolls with blue or green skin. So, but I did give her pink and red eyes and blue eyebrows to match her hair and pearlescent green lips because it's a natural look. I didn't really like her once I got her painted. It was mainly a yay, I'm finished, I can take pictures of her and forget about her. But once I started taking pictures of her, and I've already posted the pictures on Flickr, I started to really like her. Now, I might just put her on a shelf and ignore her for years. I don't know. That's the way it is with dolls, and we'll see. So that's it for thrifting and buying and dolls I've put together lately. And I do want to say, today is September 1st. I am going to not go to the thrift store at all during September. I do this sometimes. Usually it's after I have a really good run of finding stuff in the thrift store and I watch my PayPal balance, because I use my PayPal debit card. I watch my PayPal balance go down and down and down, and then I hit a point where I say, I have enough stuff, I need to use the stuff. So I'm going to spend the time in September where I would have been thrifting. In theory, I'm going to stay home and work on stuff. And I have a lot of stuff to work on. There's all the sewing, you know, you've seen all my patterns and all my cloth that I've gotten. And there's always dolls to work on. And I already have a little stack of things that I'm going to try to have done for the video next week. The first of which is that Flava's Happy D doll I thrifted a few weeks ago. I have put the head on a live body because the Flava's body is interesting, but it has clicky legs and her body was missing a thumb. So for now, that body is in the parts bin. I will try to reuse it eventually, but this head actually works pretty well on a live body. This is the version of Happy D that had the braids, which, if you can see, they were just rooted around the periphery of her hairline. I think that was as much an aesthetic decision on Mattel's part, because braids are not usually full, fluffy, super huge looking, which they would have looked like if they had been rooted the whole head like that. Also, that kind of hair is probably more expensive because it has to go through the extra process of being, I think it's crocheted a little more than braided. So there's a lot of rooting holes I will be improvising myself when I give her hair, and I've decided to give her Jennifier's hair because she has a lot of green and cool tones in her stock makeup. Of course, who knows if I'll keep her stock makeup, but I don't have any human dolls with green hair, so I am going to give her green hair and hopefully get started on that soon. Another project is I found this Draculaura in a thrift store, and she was missing her arm and hand, which that's very common, but I've also been finding arms and hands in thrift stores. So I actually found the correct Draculaura other hand. Maybe it had originally been from this doll. And yes, this is an Abby arm, but I'm thinking I could use that as inspiration to make different colors of different areas. I don't know, like a robot type look. I'm really not sure yet. And I think I gave the Draculaura head to somebody, possibly Tiffy. I know I sent her a Draculaura head. I don't know if it was this one. Anyway, so I also had found a not really knockoff Monster High doll because it hadn't used a copy of a real Monster High head sculpt. Don't do that. But this was a wannabe Monster High doll, and it was on more of a Bratz wannabe body, and I have actually already acetone shrunk this head. You can see the rip in the top because I'm not careful, and she's very hard. So I will probably sculpt something instead of hair and make my little pink cyborg, maybe. And related to that, I also, Jennifier's hair has obviously been removed and all the glue was dug out of her head. And I found, again, I think I showed you this already, I put the Cleolize arm and hand on it because the glove is gold, and again that gives me inspiration for other colors to use throughout the body. And I did shrink her head too, and whew, boy did it rip. You see it ripped all the way down to beside her ear. But again, I think I can sculpt something over that and also have her be a sort of dragon robot cyborg. Maybe. I do plan also to try to give her maybe articulated ankles, because if you know me, I don't like the super high heels that Monster High dolls have. So if you just give her articulated ankles, then I have larger shoes that will fit. It's just the angle was wrong, and hopefully I can fix that. Another thing I've thought about trying to do is, I think a lot of you have seen my efforts to paint the pumpkins with the vintage Japanese bunka doll style. I want to try painting a fashion doll like that. Part of the problem is, though, most fashion dolls have sculpted eye wells. I finally realized that the Winx, the modern Winx by Jakks Pacific, don't have those. And since I keep thrifting Blossom, for the body, I have a couple of these heads kicking around, and I went ahead and stripped her. I don't know if you can see that her blush actually stained her cheeks. And instead of trying to get the stains out, I think I'm going to try to paint bunka doll style on this head. And let me know if you want to see me record a video of it so you can see how hilariously bad it goes in real time. And I think that's it for now. See, yeah, there's never an end of projects. I just need to actually do them, and I'm hoping that my promise not to go thrifting this month and my aim to put at least one video up every week will actually convince me to work on these projects, some of which have been sitting around for months. We'll see. Thanks.